Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Ideas Sin. My name is Denise, and today I'm excited to bring to you Rogue. Now, Rogue and I met actually through a few different acquaintances, and we're both working on a documentary, which it was going to be a short documentary, but apparently it's
Right.
maybe a little longer. So, I mean, like for you, what got you roped into that? Like, how did you end up meeting everybody from our team?
Well, I think I met Lisa and Jessica through the Austin School of Film. We took a couple classes together. I think I don't remember which one specifically, but they were related to like sound and like digital filmmaking, some basic classes that I was kind of brushing up on my knowledge. And to fulfill some of the like course requirements or certificate requirements. Still haven't gotten my certificate from them, but but yeah. And then Jessica looped me in. I think she's bound to be like a future like producer or something. She's really good at connecting people. But she looped me in, and then Lisa was spearheading the project, and I was like, oh well, I know both of them. And then I got introduced to you and Lee, and I was like, oh, this is exciting. I think like I feel there's a really special connection I think that we all had like when we first met. And I think that really drove me to commit to the project. Yeah.
Yeah. Had you ever worked on a documentary before, or is this the first time you're doing something like
I think the
this?
documentary is a first for me, but I have helped on other student productions for short films. And so it's just filmmaking is a big interest of mine. So I try to get involved when I can, uh, especially locally. So yeah.
Yeah. How long have you been interested in filmmaking?
Let's see. I mean, for a while now, but I think I first started actually pursuing the knowledge and taking classes maybe around 2019. So the last 4 or 5 years, maybe, of like,
Mhm.
getting books and then attending classes and doing some little projects here and there. But I haven't done anything big yet. We'll see.
Yeah. What got you into filmmaking then?
Well,
Like what about it piqued your interest and you were like, "Oh yeah, I want to actually learn how to make films, not just watch them."
I mean, I think we all start out watching a lot of movies, and then there's always a moment where you start kind of going to the behind the scenes and figuring out, oh well, how do they make this, and then what does it mean to have this amount of budget, and like what what are the different roles? And it's like the more I learned it about the different roles and responsibilities, and like it's a very creative field. There's so many different people you have to collaborate with, so that got me really excited to kind of learn more. And then the technical aspects kind of sometimes it goes over my head. I'll be honest, Denise. but but I think it's important to learn, and then like keeping that passion alive. And those are like two key things for me. And like I know it might take me longer to get to where I want to go, but I think it's important to just learn a little bit every day.
Mhm. And what was the first class that you took in
I think the
filmmaking?
first one for me was like aesthetics of filmmaking. And
Mm.
I think they revamped the class after I took it, but it was very cut and dry. It was a lot of theory. And we watched some short clips of different techniques and things like that. But it wasn't very as informative as I thought it would be. I mean, I did learn a lot of like film history in that class and different editing styles, but I don't think it really clicked for me until I like held a camera in my hands and got to fiddle with some sound equipment and figure out like, oh, what does a set look like, in person. So that was more of when I like kind of the learning curve wasn't as big because on smaller productions it's easier to control some of those elements. So yeah, I'm still learning, but it's a good start to kind of knowing how to produce your own stuff on an indie level, at least. Yeah.
Have you recorded anything prior to doing filmmaking, or were you into photography beforehand? Any visual type of
I
art?
think I did pick up photography in high school. I was like part of the photography club and it was led by one of our teachers. And, we just went out into nature and took some photos. And that's how I kind of got started. And I did participate in like yearbook and like writing clubs. So I've always been interested in like artistic pursuits, but I've never really like committed as much time and effort as I have into filmmaking because I think it's like so vast and then my mind gets bored easily. So I have to like constantly be distracted. so, so I think it fits my like personality because like you have to learn about all the different job roles and responsibilities on set because you have to like kind of be able to jump in where needed, right? Especially if it's just a small crew like ours is. You kind of have to if certain people can't make it, then you have to be able to like think on your feet, right? And be able to fill in for example, Lee does the sound usually, but what if he can't go that day, right? So somebody would have to take over. So
Mhm.
I think it's good to know a little bit of everything. That way you're not like terrible at everything, but you can kind of at least know a little bit so you can help out. Yeah.
Mhm. And what do you typically gravitate towards now?
I'm more behind the camera. I like writing.
Mhm.
That is a main driver, and I'm trying to figure out how to get out of writer's block because I've kind of had a lot of ideas, but I haven't
Mm.
really been able to piece together any cohesive, like longer works of art. So I'm trying to get back into it now, and I found a few writing um, people like either through work or people I've met, either in Austin or even well not here yet, but I'm hoping to meet some fellow artists here in the future to collaborate with. So that keeps me going. Like when you have people to hold you accountable, like us or some of my other friends, it's nice to kind of have people to drive you as well in pursuits. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, it reminds me of, so have you ever heard of Masterclass?
Oh, I have. Yeah.
So they have some folks on there that I believe talk about writing and directing and I think putting together a script. Uh,
Hmm.
I think I should have a pass, so I can always send you a link to check it out in case you're interested because some of them are like very well renowned
Right.
directors and writers and
Yeah.
like all sorts of creative people. So it's like interesting. I'll tap in and I'll be like, oh, what is this creative process like? And what's this like? And what's this like? And
Hmm.
you just get so many random ideas and you're like, oh, wow, I never thought of something like that. And it just, I don't, it like applies in so many different areas. Um,
Yeah, I wanted to sign up for a subscription actually during Christmas, but then my friend chickened out because they were doing 2 for 1
oh,
accounts or something during the holidays. And I was like, well, okay, fine. Then I'll wait until next year and I'll just do it anyway. But no, I will hit you up later to try it out. And then if I like it, I'll sign up too.
yeah, yeah. I'll send you the link so you can check it out because
Okay,
I think
sounds good.
it's good for I don't know, maybe like 30 days or listening to a few classes or something. So, yeah,
Okay.
that'll give you a good feeler for
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah. No, I love hearing, from, like world renowned or, just they're really top of their field artists, be they directors or writers, producers, like it's all part of the process and you need to be able to work with people like that if you want to succeed, right, in whatever you're trying to do. And maybe like, they're definitely several or multiple levels above you, but you can still learn from them. So I love that as a resource. Yeah.
Mhm. And in your current, I guess, profession, like do you get to apply any of the learnings that you've gotten from filmmaking in that or is it like totally different?
I think like the content is very different. but it's similar in terms of like it's busy, very corporate and very business heavy, but
Mm,
we make a lot of PowerPoint presentations, and so I think like the creative aspect, like the visual design of that kind of comes into play a lot more. I mean, the client is a little more conservative, but we do have a lot of room to kind of express ourselves in our own style, like in terms of what we're writing, and then um, like designing the PowerPoints. There's certain guidelines, but you kind of have some room to kind of do your own thing too.
mm. Have you been working in your industry for a long time?
Well, I got hired as a consultant because I have like 7, 8 years of contact center or call center management experience, including being a service representative, customer service representative. And
Mhm.
so that's kind of how I got into that kind of job. In the beginning, it was to survive, and now I'm more like, oh, well, I'm doing it as a like as a professional level, and so there's a lot of things to learn, and it's exciting though to kind of challenge yourself, that way.
Yeah. Yeah, and I keep finding that regardless of what you're doing in your job, you're picking up skills. This was an interesting thought and a conversation I had with a friend just yesterday is it would be interesting if some of us are getting pulled into roles in order to strengthen some of the characteristics that we're typically not strong in. and and so like once you
Mhm.
do that, you end up gravitating towards the things that you are good at, but now you've kind of like up
Mhm.
leveled some of those other lower strengths and then
Mhm.
you've bumped them up, so now it's like, oh, okay, now you
Mhm.
have like your full strengths to really tap into, and then you have your other skills that are now going to apply and complement what you need to get done. So that'll be kind
Mhm.
of cool to see where it goes.
I definitely think the skills I'm learning now and for the last like the career I had before I became a consultant will definitely come into play in terms of what I want to do with filmmaking and writing. Um, yeah, I can see them correlating or, one influencing the other even.
Hmm.
So, I mean, it's kind of weird in how it works, but I could totally see like where your friend kind of came up with that though. Like I think it does apply, in real life and in like our imaginations, right? Which is what we're trying to pursue outside of work. So I can definitely see like the connections there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, what if eh, I just thought of this, but like you're constantly doing PowerPoints for clients and for other people. When you're putting together a
Hmm.
PowerPoint, you're really like providing a visual representation of like a story. Like you're providing a story visually in that sense. So I'm wondering if maybe to help with your writing process, instead of going in and literally writing, what if you were to start with like
Hmm.
a visual process first, and then like this way you can get like the overall picture of what you want and then break it down into writing. Do you think that could work?
That's I think so. And that's why like we do storyboarding at work and
Ooh.
that's actually a process we do for filmmaking too, except it's different content and styles, I guess, because at work we're doing it more for, yeah, like you said, the client or different key stakeholders, as we say in the business world.
Yeah.
But I could see it applying in filmmaking too, because there is a process after you get the script, right? Like, and then you have to hire everybody, but then there's a storyboarding process too. So maybe you can start with that and then, sketch out like what should be happening, like what story and characters that you're thinking about. So that could be cool to explore. Yeah,
Hmm.
I could see that.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't written anything, but I could totally see you just doing like a storyboard, even for like just
There
certain
is a
aspects of your script, like, or a
Mhm, mhm.
character, or you're like, yeah, there's just like this one scene that I can envision. And maybe you can just create a storyboard off that and then see how it goes from there.
There is a writer, and who now is kind of like a consultant too.
Mhm.
She, her name is Jill Chamberlain, and she has classes
Oh,
in Austin on screenwriting. and she has this book called The Nutshell Technique.
Mm.
And I took her class actually a few years ago, and I did learn how to like kind of map out, like you were saying, like the main character and their story arc and what how like the different plot points should fit into a story. And so that method really like, because I'm a visual learner, so I think
Mm.
it really helped me to start drafting my stories. And then the next step of the process she usually advises writers to do is to write like an outline or a beat sheet. And then that really helps because then you can go into it and write like your treatment, like your 10-15 page short story version before you dive into like the other aspects of writing, the actual script. So it's like different layers of writing that kind of culminate into your main work, which I find very interesting. And I know a lot of other writers will do like, um, for example, in the industry, there's like what's called a Bible or like a show Bible. I don't know if you've heard of that term or not, but
Mm-mm.
it's basically where they, for example, if it's like a TV series, right? They'll have like, now shows are much shorter, so they'll probably do like 8 or 10 episodes, right? And so they'll have an outline and a map of all the characters, all the stories of every episode, and then they'll even have like color swatches of what colors like the clothes should be, and then the colors of like what the set design is, and then like there's um, what the actual set design is. So there's like all the aspects of production in like one place, which I find very fascinating because it's like you don't realize that there's so much documentation that goes into making like one like movie or TV show. And it's not just what you see and hear, but it's the planning and like the deciding behind the scenes of it all. And it's like really interesting to me, you know. And that's why
Mm.
I do gravitate towards like directing or producing too, because I think those are, I mean, obviously not everyone can be the director, right? Or the producer, but the roles are very interesting because you can connect people and resources together to make really cool artistic things, you know, that came out of someone's brain, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, it's really exciting to kind of be part of that process, and kind of see where your mind goes to and what kind of stories and plots. I mean, characters, things like that. Because you don't really get to do that in your normal life, right? So
Hmm.
yeah, that's why I like it.
Mm. So, what kind of writing are you into? Do you have a specific type of genre that you tend to gravitate towards, or is it just free flowing?
You know, when I first started writing when I was younger, maybe like middle school or high school, it was much more free flowing, like stream of consciousness style. But now I think I gravitate more towards, it's more genre specific for sure. So, like science fiction, I'm trying to get into that. I watch a lot of science fiction. I don't read a lot of it. I guess comics count a little bit, but it's not like the novels or short stories that usually get published. So I haven't done as much of that, but I'd like to. So
Mm.
I'm challenging myself to read some of the classic works, like from Isaac Asimov and oh, what was his name? There's some great writers that I read when I was younger. Don't you think it's weird? Like you read a lot when you're younger, but when as an adult, like we don't really get into it as much. But anyway, yeah, I think
Mhm.
there's a lot of great content there, and it's figuring out what you want to do. Right now, I'm working on a project that's historical fiction, and yeah, I've got some
Oh,
books here that I've been trying to read. This one is Ghosts of Gold Mountain, and it talks about the Chinese railroad workers on the Transcontinental Road.
oh,
And I've got a few
really?
other books like that too. Yeah, like this one is a novel. This one is more of a historical account, the one I just showed you. But this one's more of a novel, like a YA kind of novel. Dragon's Gate. It's like a series, I think, of books
Dragon's
that
Gate.
Lawrence Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, there's like a series, the Golden Mountain Chronicles, And so like there's all kinds of
Mm,
material that I never knew existed, you know? But like moving to Sacramento, I'm like discovering like because this was, you know, the starting point of the Union Pacific route, right? From here. And they met like the eastern side in the middle, right? So I find that to be really fascinating, even though there's obviously issues that stem from then that you can't
mm,
kind of have to be careful with when you're researching and writing about that time period. But I
mm,
think there's room to like kind of combine genres even. Like maybe I could combine science fiction with historical fiction. Like what
mm.
if somebody time traveled to back then and got stuck there and had to like live their lives then?
I'm sure it's happened.
Right?
A lot of people are stuck in the past, so like, why not?
It could be interesting. I mean, it's a very familiar trope, so it would get viewers invested or readers invested right away because they're
Mm,
familiar with the kind of concept. But like you could develop your own rules, right, of the world that you're developing, and that's kind of fun to do versus just doing not necessarily like a dry historical fiction like drama or something like that. Like
mm,
for example, I really like The Gilded Age. I think that Julian Fellows is really brilliant. He also did what was it called, Downton Abbey.
mm.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
so it's a very specific style to do that like historical or period drama. But I think I have a wild imagination, and so I think I would like combine it with some crazy like time travel tale or some other like science fiction concept.
Yeah, I think that would be really
Yeah,
cool.
I think so too. And then like it's like, well, okay, I know that happened on Earth, but like, what if that happened on a totally completely different planet, but you have similar types of stories, you know? Like, I don't know. I'm still
Mhm,
playing around with like what I want to do with it. Because there's like so many different versions you could tell with and with so many different types of characters too. Like,
oh,
yeah, it's so
yeah.
interesting, you know?
That's making me think of, like, multi-dimension, and it's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, what if you, like you go back in time, but, like, you're in a completely different dimension, and so it's not like you're gonna, I don't know, experience the same
Mm,
type of
right.
potential life because you're now
Mm-hmm.
completely flipped, but you're in a past." Yeah, I don't know. Just
Mm-hmm.
something. I'll leave it for you to
That
write.
could
I'm
be
just
interesting.
spitballing.
Yeah. No, I like it. I mean, it kind of makes me think of video games, right? Because you have to
Mm,
pick like a lot of video games are written for like males, right? And so you have to
yeah.
figure out like I mean, no, there's a lot for us too. But I'm
Okay, yeah.
saying like traditionally like yeah, and then you have to like, you know, pick some name for the character and then it's like, well, for example, BioShock, the main character is a man, right? And so
Mhm.
I'm just like, oh, well, I guess I get to be a man in this game.
Oh, yeah,
That's
that's
so awkward. And
true.
I'm just like, wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get much into it because like the one I'm playing, it starts at a lighthouse, and I'm just like, okay, this is really creepy, and there's like a murder that happens there, and I'm like, okay, I need to stop. It's like mob era 1940s New York, and I'm just like, okay, maybe I need to like, and then it changes though. It's so interesting. Like video games are really interesting, Denise. I think they
Mhm,
inspire me too because it's like you're role playing a lot of the time and
mhm,
it's like you get to live a life that you would never get to experience in real life, but it's all virtual, right? It's
mhm,
like digital entertainment, and then there's so much room for like storytelling there too. So
mhm,
yeah, it's not just movies that inspire me. There's so many different types of media that you can tell stories in these days.
mhm.
So yeah, it's kind of exciting.
Yeah, maybe that would be a cool little avenue to explore is, like, video game story writing, storytelling.
Yeah, think that could be potentially be my next job, Denise.
do, do it. I'll connect you with my brother who's also really into video games as well. And like he's
Okay.
during our podcast session, he was like, he's going in and already thinking about the paperwork required to like, put stuff
Oh,
together.
yeah.
So the fact you
That's what I
talked
was
about
telling
that
you
too, it's like
earlier.
you guys will connect fine. You'll be like,
It's
what kind of
like,
paperwork do we need? I don't all this. And
right.
you guys have fun. I'm checking out.
I feel like there's a lot of like details that like you don't think about, and it's all
Mhm.
paperwork, but before you can have fun
Y
and do
y
the actual thing you want to do.
exactly.
You know what I mean? And I'm discovering this more and more as I like progress in my life, like as I get more and more like into into different things. It's like, oh, well, I probably should found my own company if I want to make it into filmmaking. Then I can get insurance that covers the company, not like I won't be personally liable. I've been like discovering the business aspects of the trade, and I'm just like, oh, yeah, I mean, I knew this before, but I guess
Yeah.
it's really important, especially if I want to be filming like car scenes or if I want to be doing specific stunts or whatever, right? It's like, well, if
Oh,
the
yeah.
actors get hurt and sue me, that would suck. So,
That would suck.
right, or if anybody else does, right? So it's like,
Mhm.
oh, that makes so much more sense, but it's like costly too to found your own business and keep it up and running. So it's like, yeah, you have to pick your moment really to do that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, I took like a media policy course.
Hmm.
And they talked just about that. If you're filming outside, what are you able to film?
Hmm.
Well, so long as it's in the public, technically you can record people who's driving in a car next to you. Uh,
Hmm.
and so people that are out there listening to this, it's like if you are in a public setting, technically, like,
Yeah.
you can be recorded, like, there's nothing
Hmm.
stopping anybody from doing that. But obviously, like, it's totally different if you're in your home and somebody's, like, creeping in, and even that's, like,
Oh, right. Yeah.
weird too. They were like, "Yeah, technically, if you have your windows completely wide open and somebody's across the street or on public, like, yeah, on public soil and they can see whatever's happening, like, technically, I don't know if they said, like, you can technically record or, like, look
How
in, but
interesting.
it's like it's
That's really
very
creepy.
weird. Yeah, it's really weird. I think that's why, there's so
Yeah.
many issues with, like, celebrity cases where it's like, oh, yeah, you have those
Mm.
photographers that are constantly stalking these celebrities and taking pictures of them at hotels and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, it's
That's really
a very fine
awful. I
line.
can't. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't do that. I like my privacy.
I mean, I think like if we do become big names in the entertainment industry, I mean, you never know, right? Um, there's
Yeah.
there's there's ways to deal with it. Like your PR team would probably tell you what to do and how to handle that kind of pressure.
Yeah.
And then you'd be able to afford mental health. So, it would
Oh
be
my
fine.
gosh. Every day is a mental
I
health
mean, I
session.
need
All
to
right.
I know. I mean, like, yeah, I think even as an everyday person, like a private citizen, I need mental health help because it's just like, well, it's not just stress at work, but it's like, adapting to a new city and then
Mhm.
missing my friends and family. Like, everyone's in different places. And then it's just like, so much shit is happening in the world. Like,
Yeah.
not to talk about depressing stuff, but it's like crazy. Crazy what things happen every year, and you're just like, I don't know if I'm prepared for this to happen. Like, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But you just have to, you know, embrace things that keep you happy, which is like making art and having sessions like this and being able to talk about happy things. Really help. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's true, and, like, don't feel the need to apologize because that's something that everybody goes through, are those
Yeah.
anxious and depressive states and being lost in life or in the world, and I'm not saying everybody's lost, I'm not, like, directing that at you. I'm just
Oh
saying, like,
no,
in
no, but
general, like, we
it's
all
very common.
experience it. Yeah, and
Hmm.
it is
Yeah.
just that. We need to just accept that it's very common. We I feel like I keep talking about this a lot in different podcasts recordings that I've had, but it's just we still don't have like a really good sense of community amongst us, and so there's a
Mhm.
disconnect, and so a lot of people feel isolated and they feel
Mhm.
like, oh, my emotions are either not valid, they can't share it, they feel like they're the only ones maybe experiencing certain types of fears and anxieties, and I can't talk about this and I can't do this and I can't show weakness, and it's like everybody is going through something. And it's just like,
Mhm.
we're not alone. Like, it's conversations like this that really help us to be like, "Oh, you're going
Yeah.
through that too? Me too." Like,
Mhm.
let's connect. And
I think there's a lot of
yeah.
people who do and who feel that way, like they can't show that side of themselves, whereas I talk about it all day. And I feel um, like sometimes maybe I'm talking about it too much,
Mm,
but I mean, I think it's like valid. Like everyone has a valid point of view and experience, right? And I think it's just being able to be there for people when they're at lower points than you are is important too, to be a good supporter of someone else who's going through something rough, right? Or you may be going through stuff too, but if you can be there, then obviously that would be ideal, right? That's one way we can build up that kind of community, and like being there for each other is really important.
mhm. And I appreciate that you said can be there, because I
Hmm.
know sometimes we get caught up in the, yeah, I need to be there for them. I have to be there for them, but you're filling you don't have that energy to necessarily give to another person. And if you are going through your own things and you can't even
Hmm.
sort through your stuff, like how can
Yeah.
you do that to somebody else? Like, you're giving out of an empty
Right.
cup. And yeah, I think that's important too. It's like we have to take care of ourselves. And then when we have the energy, it's like we share it with other people.
Yeah. Definitely. Like it's kind of hard, right? If you're also down in the dumps and you're just like, oh, I don't know if I can listen to this person talk about their problems today. And like, you're not a licensed therapist, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
even though you have like maybe some knowledge of psychology or whatever, I mean, everyone does these days. I mean, it's not, sometimes you just, yeah, like you said, you're giving out of an empty cup, like you don't have the spoons for it, right? So
Hmm.
but it's not, I don't think it's really about that. I think at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, like what I said, like when you can, try and
Hmm.
be there, but if not, then maybe you do need the space before you can be that type of like conduit or supporter for someone else. Yeah, definitely take. I'm learning this. It's like I think I kind of disregarded a lot of like wellness or mental health kind of stuff like when I was younger, but now like I think, I mean, not that I'm like old or whatever, but I think
No,
as
you're
you
not
age,
old.
you kind of I feel like age though, like age up like year over year. Sorry that we're talking about aging now, but it's like
It's okay. That's important too.
uh, relearning lessons that you learned. It's like relearning
Hmm.
things in more detail. I feel as we like go. So I think it's okay, and everyone learns at different paces. So I think,
Hmm.
yeah, I think this applies to the art stuff too, like the filmmaking and writing and different things we talked about on the podcast of doing doing that requires a lot of mental agility, right? You have to be very adaptable. You have to be able to think in a way that you don't in your day job. And then having a day job plus wanting to pursue this, it makes you kind of crazy inside, right? And so you kind of have to, you kind of have to do like two jobs or five jobs. I don't know how many jobs at the same time to kind of do what you want to do. And so it can be very, you can feel all the emotions in one day sometimes when you're really trying to like do everything you want in your life, and then you realize, oh, maybe I can't today. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I actually really appreciate that you say that, because I feel like I never look at some of these things or podcasts as like a job. I just see it as like, oh yeah, it's just like a thing that I want to do, but there's a
Mhm.
lot that goes into these different things, and it's true. It's like some
Right.
of these things literally are like a job because you have to go learn about producing and audio processing and figuring out the different systems that go into it, scheduling people, it's
Mhm.
creating email te like, I mean, I'm not gonna go into my whole process, but, like, these are all the different
Right.
things that I had to figure out on my own and, like, take, whatever I've learned from, like, the previous classes or from talking to different people or, watching YouTube videos and like, there's a lot, and that applies to any type of activity that you're into, like, you have
Mhm.
to really start diving in and swimming, but if you are at, like, an emotional or, like, mental capacity for the day, you're just like, "Oh, I gotta give myself a break." I think that's the other
Mhm.
thing is being forgiving of, like, "Hey, you've hit your energy capacity for today. It's okay to rest.
Mhm.
Deal with it another day
Yeah.
or the next day," you know?
Or the week later.
Sometimes, yeah.
Just just
Yeah.
continue procrastinating like I have. No, I'm kidding.
Depends
I
how
think I
long.
think I think my problem is I have I have squirrel brain, and so and I don't
Mm,
remember things very quickly, or not. No, that's not the right way to say. But I'm just like I have so many interests, and I get a lot of ideas, and so sometimes you
mm.
can't slow down to kind of process and flesh out what you want to do, and then you're just like, well, okay, I'll write all the ideas down first, and then come back to it later.
Yeah. No, and that's a good strategy and just figure out like, okay, what am I being called to? Like, so I
Hmm.
understand where you're coming from. I also have a ton of different interests and I'm always gravitating towards what is drawing my attention at that time. And I
Mm.
feel like there are moments where it's like I saw this really good YouTube video and it was something like it was actually, like, a really interesting video and really well put together. I'll have to find it and
Okay.
I'll add it in the bio, but I'll share it. But the girl pretty much goes and says, like, "You're not lazy because you can't, like, stick to a routine schedule and do things the way that we have been taught or forced to learn while we were in school. Some people are the kind of individuals who yeah, you can expose them to the idea and this and that, but like they're able to really hyper focus when it's necessary and then they can execute and they learn even faster than some of the other people that, are constantly just putting in like little bits of time every single day to something like that.
Hmm.
Uh, I thought it was really interesting because I like really felt I don't like, I felt comfort in that because I do work in those ways. It's like I have all these different interests and I'll expose myself to little things here and there and kinda get that
Hmm.
information plugging into my brain, like, very passively, and then out of nowhere, I'll get that energy surge where I'm like, "Okay, now I'm gonna dive in," and then I'm like, "Da da 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 da," and I'm, like,
Hmm.
hyper focused, like, executing, researching, and doing everything that I need to do because I have the energy and the span for it.
Hmm.
So I just feel like there are a number of people that are like that, and we just have to be
Yeah.
acknowledged for that.
Hmm. And I think an important thing is to like make space for yourself too, like we were talking
Mhm.
before. And it's very important to yeah, to work based off of your strengths, and then you can improve your weaknesses later.
Yeah. Well, the other aspect too, somebody else that I've been talking to, has mentioned and kinda like coaching is just, sometimes we just need to focus on our strengths and optimize that. And, if
Hmm.
we have weaknesses in other areas, sometimes we just have to find somebody who can help fulfill those things because maybe those are the strengths that they're good at. And it's like so for example, with the
Hmm.
paperwork, if I'm like, "Guys, I have a million pages of things and I don't know what to do with this. I'm gonna just go to you and my brother who are all about paperwork." And then y'all can handle it because that's like, yeah, it seems like that's up your wheelhouse, you know?
I could probably figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah. So see, it's like, sometimes you just gotta find that balance and be like, it's okay to offset sometimes to like
Yeah,
other
yeah,
people who are into
for
that
sure.
thing and then you help each other out, I guess, in that way.
And that's why I like it. going back to like filmmaking and how we met, like I think full
Mhm.
circle, it's like, yeah, we all have our different strengths and weaknesses, and I think that's why we work really well as a crew and a team together. um, Everyone has such, interesting ideas too to bring to the project. So it's not like one
Mhm.
person who's driving, even though it is technically Lisa's project since she knows the band and put everything together for us. But I think everybody's really strong in different areas. So I think everyone has something to bring to the table. And I think that's part of why I like filmmaking is like you can meet so many diverse people from different backgrounds who have different skill sets that can combine together. So it's not
Mhm.
just you doing everything, but if you know different people who can help you, why not leverage that, right? Because they're a resource and they can pass the knowledge on to you so you can do what you want to do even better down the line, right? So I think that's definitely very valid. I agree.
Yeah. And so I guess, I mean, we're almost done filming. And so it'll be interesting because now we're going to get into the editing aspect of it. Like, have you had
hmm
a lot of editing experience before?
I think I've taken a lot of classes, but I don't think I have a
Mhm.
lot of like real experience yet with it. But I'm fascinated by like different editing strategies and like the functions of the different software. So I just like kind of like nerd out in terms of computer programs because that's what we do at work. We have to
Mm.
know the advanced functions in like the core Microsoft products. So like, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, and stuff like that. And I'm just like, oh, I can't keep up sometimes. but I mean, you kind of have to like click around and just know what all the buttons do. So yeah, I think that's part of it is kind of it's an adventure, right? Like every new platform or software you use is a chance to kind of grow those skills, because a lot of times, for example, in video editing, I cannot say that word today. I don't know why. Anyway,
That's okay.
in
There's
video
a lot of words I can't say. Stumble over, I'm like, "Ugh."
right, I know. I just like certain days you can't say certain words, and it's just like, do I have dyslexia? I don't know. I have other things I know I have, but maybe there's some comorbidity. Who knows? but anyway, in video editing, there's sound editing combined with most video editing
Oh, yeah.
platforms, or like the big ones are on Apple. They have what is it called? Final Cut Pro, right? And then with Adobe, you have I don't remember what it's called, but there's a few different softwares that people will use.
For
There's like
video?
DaVinci too. Yeah, have you heard of
Oh.
them?
Oh, I should. There's, like,
I'll text them to you
Adobe
later.
After Effects, Media Premiere
Oh yeah, After
Pro?
Effects. Yes, that one's
Yeah.
yeah, that one's a good one. Premiere Pro is good too. Um, but yeah, there's some other ones too. But it's just like you find that there are similar functions within those different applications. That
Mhm.
if a certain project is using a different one that than you're used to, it's okay to not be comfortable with it and to jump in and learn a new program because you can use it later on. You can apply that same knowledge you learn to different platforms. There's a lot of similar functions. Excuse me. But yeah, I find, I don't, I think I know what buttons to push to do very basic or intermediate level stuff, but I definitely want to dive in more and learn um, all of it. I mean, it's impossible to learn everything, obviously, but but as much as I can, whenever I can upgrade my laptop, I plan on installing the Adobe Creative Suite and some
Mhm.
other programs like Final Draft for screenwriting and stuff. I mean, it's going to be expensive, but
Oh.
I'm saving up to kind of get get a good setup so I can utilize because the desk I'm at right now is in my room and I plan on using this as a creative space
Mhm.
because the one outside is like for work and stuff. So I'm just like, okay, I need a safe space to like just breathe and sit down and like oh, I'm gonna like write today, so I should have the right software and stuff. So I mean that's a ideal dream scenario. Right now I'm just
Yeah.
using some free products to like kind of create, but you make do with what you can. But yeah, I definitely would be interested in editing and stuff. Sorry, that's a long long-winded answer.
No, that's totally okay. That's like the whole point. It's for you to talk.
I can be very wordy, as somebody mentioned earlier to me yesterday at work.
Oh, really?
That's just because I have like all of these thoughts in my head, and it's very
Mm.
flowery usually, and I can like, I don't know, I just have very sometimes run-on sentences in my head, and when like after you write it down, you're just like, this doesn't sound right, and then that's where the editing comes in too with writing. Like, I think a lot of things we do is like we
Huh.
put it down, like or get it out there, and then the creative process is more of editing it and like what do we want it to look like in the end, the final result. And so I can talk about editing all day. I'm sorry, Denise.
No,
I know
you're
we're running ahead
good.
of
Don't
time.
apologize.
That's another problem I have. I think I apologize too much, and I think it's very Asian because well, not just Asian, but I think as female, like born, like we
Uh-huh.
kind of get taught to apologize for a lot of
Oh.
things, right? And so I think that's cultural thing too that we're shifting away from
Mm.
gradually, but I think it's still part of my behavior, But I think it's okay to know
Yeah.
where I think it's knowing when to apologize is hard sometimes.
That
I
is a
think with
thing for women especially because a lot of the
hmm
times where yeah, again, depending on the culture that you're in, sometimes it's like, don't talk unless you're spoken to, or,
right.
like,
I
don't
think it's
talk
less
too
of that
much
now,
or
but yeah,
Mhm.
there's that. I think that's playing more into our culture right now is yeah, well, you talk, but only to a certain extent. Like you can't talk about certain topics sometimes, right?
Mhm. Yeah, there was an
And so it can
interesting
be hard.
yeah, and there's, like, an interesting study that was done comparing how women speak up, like, in meetings versus men, and typically how men dominate the conversation at a table, and the women, unfortunately, they don't always get to, like, chip in, and so it's like, it's
hmm
great that we're at a table to talk, but there should be space for other people to talk as well, and so I think we have to step into more self-awareness and be like, "Am I
hmm
always talking?" Like, if you're always the one talking at the table, you know, maybe that's something to, like,
Right.
realize in a business setting anyway, like, I
Yeah.
realize that
Yeah.
it's just like, okay, yeah, like, yeah, this person, like, Bob, let Nancy speak, okay? She literally said one sentence before you interrupted her, or you interjected and then just regurgitated what she said in a different way, so it's like
hmm
I've seen that before, and it's just like, "Dude,
hmm
like, why
Yeah.
are you just changing her idea and trying to take credit for it?"
hmm
I don't know. I've seen it, and I don't like it, but again, I'm
I think all of us have, at work, and it's kind
Mhm.
of hard to. I mean, maybe it's even happened to you before, right? And so, I mean, I'm not assuming for you, but like for me, I think I've experienced it once or twice. And then it makes you uncomfortable, right? And it's just like, well, okay, whatever. But you don't really know what to do. And that's when you should be talking to, maybe your supervisor or somebody on the side after it happens. But then it's like, yeah, I think we're taught not to stand up for ourselves. We're like, oh, somebody should come to your rescue. But it's like, okay, we're over that phase now. But it's like, well,
Mhm,
what do we do when those situations happen? I think that's not very well understood. Like certain people can do it very well though, like women or other people who can be more assertive at work, but then I think it's hard because like culturally for like me at least in like Chinese or Asian culture, especially like there is a hierarchy in a lot of ways.
mm,
And like, oh, you're not supposed to like speak when there's more elders present,
mm.
unless you get asked for your opinion, right? Or, constantly being told, like, oh, you're interrupting, you should, like, just listen. And
Oh,
so
really?
sometimes it can be hard to speak up. I mean, not, it's like a very general stereotype, but I mean, it is kind of cultural, I think, in some ways. Um, Especially like when I was younger, my mom would always, tell me not to interrupt and like let the adults talk about, what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think it's more lax now for sure, in modern times, but it's hard to get out of the mindset, I guess, sometimes.
Yeah, because it's
But
it's programmed in,
right, and it's like the deprogramming aspect of like figuring out, oh, you know, I should speak up, when I have an idea or if I have feedback to give, right? That's just going to help, your colleagues or your friends even. Um, so it's just kind of managing that and knowing when to do certain things. I think that there's a theme in my life is like figuring out when to do certain things or say certain things
Mm-hmm.
is what I'm learning more recently. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like a lot of us will be going through different phases like that. Like I definitely have been through those phases as well, where it's like, oh, am I speaking too much? Or I know sometimes I get into very abstract talk as well. And actually
Hmm.
going back to your point, how sometimes you noted sometimes like that you'll talk and it can sometimes be like just very long, or
Hmm.
abstract kind of thinking or thoughts and things like that. And it made me wonder if you've ever gotten into any kind of like creative writing, because then doing that, and it could just be like little short poems or little just like short whatever, but like you write it in
Hmm.
whatever artistic way like comes to you. That's what I've been trying to
Hmm.
do more on my end, and I find that, yeah, I tell this story, but then I don't know, it kind of balances that abstract thinking or form of communication that I have, and it helps to clear my mind a little bit so that when I am
Hmm.
listening and responding, I can come back with something more direct or more precise. Because I have that tendency too. Like I'll write out this long ass email, and I was like, man, I can just eliminate all of this, and then this is the
Yeah.
main point. One line is the main point, and yet I wrote a paragraph to explain it. It's like, yeah, the communication process
Hmm.
is it's a thing. It's a thing that a lot of us have to learn or relearn or figure out
Hmm.
our own like form of communication. What's the best way we communicate, and how can we optimize that?
Yeah, definitely agree. And seeing that kind of play out currently in my life. And I think it's just like something you don't actively think about a lot,
Mm,
until you have to, which isn't isn't anything bad. It's just, you're learning different skills at different points in your life, and I think,
mhm,
or strengthening ones that you thought were good already, and then, there's always room to like kind of improve, right? So that's that's what's good about like, being very curious. I think curiosity is important as well as part of the creative process. Even, you have to have that curiosity to drive your passion sometimes, because certain topics, like what I'm doing with my current project, like the Transcontinental Railroad, like the history books are very dry about that stuff. So it's like finding the room where you can insert that creativity, right, and the
mm,
storytelling. Like it's like that's part of the creative process is not only understanding that time period and doing some research first before you dive in, because you have to like kind of know what you're talking about in order to like write from that time period, right? But then, like what we were saying before, like you could play around with different genres, different ideas to kind of do a mashup or a combination of your interests, right? So I think it's all connected. Like all the things we talked about today, they're all kind of related in some way, shape, or form.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, everything always comes full circle in some type of way. I'm hearing that and I'm thinking of my friend who I spoke to yesterday, and she's talking about her creative process and how
Hmm.
she's writing. She wants to get into directing and script writing as well. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like there's so many people that are trying to go through a very similar process and have their own ways of their own ways of approaching that activity. And it's just kinda
Mm.
cool to hear, like, where everybody is either sometimes even stuck in a process. Like, that for me is still kind of interesting because 'cause you're like, "Oh, wait, that's like a blocker for people. So like what's an alternative way? What's a potential solution or creative solution that we can come up with to help remove that block? Because if it's a common
Hmm.
issue with most people, then that's something maybe we can focus on. And I think you touched on that earlier, is like your imagination and just kind of exploring that a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we give our imaginations enough credit. I mean, famously, like the Japanese animator Hayao Miyazaki, like
Hmm.
he just came out with his probably his last film, but he created Studio Ghibli. I don't know if you know those
Oh,
films.
really? Yeah.
Yeah, and he the Boy and the Heron is the his latest one. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but
No.
his imagination, I feel like, yeah, he must have been on something because dude, it's wild. You gotta go watch it.
Oh, really? Is it on
But it's
Netflix?
definitely, well, no, it was in theaters first, but I don't think it's
Oh.
come out yet on streaming. I'll let you know though, because I've been tracking that. I want to watch it again. But it's like his world building is so unique, and only he can do that, I think. And it's very abstract and Dadaist to an extent. And
And what
so
is
I love that kind of stuff. Dadaist. Have
Dada?
you heard of the Dada movement, where it's like,
No.
it kind of happened post-war, and there was like all of these artists who were just like doing, or have you heard of the phrase art for art's sake?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
just doing the art and making it because that's what you should be doing, like, or not should be doing, but it's like, if you get an idea and you want to create art for it, then you should do it, because at the end of the day, the art is more important than what message you're trying to send, or maybe there isn't a message in there, but it's all
Mm.
like part of it, right? And so it's they kind of like delve into very abstract concepts and how to like put that kind of out there. And so yeah, I think you will like that, like movies by Studio Ghibli. Have you seen any?
No. I like
Okay.
it's funny that I've even gotten into film because it's like I like watching certain movies like fantasy, sci-fi stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
me
like
too.
I don't have a TV. I don't like watch a lot of stuff anymore. And if I'm on Netflix,
Yeah.
it's always I'm always watching like some educational shit and just, oh, let me learn how to advance my skills and dive into
Mm-hmm.
this and that. So it's so unfortunately I haven't really given myself the time or the luxury to just kind of indulge in a lot of these
We're gonna have a
shows.
movie night. We're gonna have a movie night
Yeah.
and we're gonna watch cartoons,
Yeah.
but really good quality ones.
Yeah, yeah, I'm totally down. I was just thinking of watching Avatar: The Last Airbender again because I really like it. I thought it was cute.
That's a good series. That's a good series. I was just talking about Korra the other day with a
I
coworker who's
love
also a
Korra
nerd like me.
too.
That's a good one. I never finished it. I got to go back and watch it again. Yeah.
Yeah, that one took longer for me to finish. I even though I said I love it, I liked it. It was just very hard for me to, like, align with the
Hmm.
I don't know, with the theme of it.
I think the pacing was kind of off too in certain seasons, right? Like, I don't know if you could
Yeah.
feel that, but there was something off between season 1 and 2, and then I think I stopped at, like, the beginning of season 3, like, between 2 and 3 too were a little different. Like, yeah, thematically, I could kind of tell where they were going, but then plot-wise and then, like, the pacing of the stories, like, each episode was kinda like, did they switch writers in between or creative directors or whatever? Like,
Yeah.
something feels off. I don't know.
Yeah, it was like,
Sometimes you
it's like
can
I wanna connect,
tell.
but yeah, there was something off about it, and I was just like,
Yeah, but like with the first series, like Avatar, the first Airbender, like the Aang
yeah.
and everything like that, that was very easy to kind of connect with, because I
Mhm.
think it was like one creative team kind of saw through the whole series, right?
Mm.
So sometimes you can tell like different installments of different genres or art that you're following can change, and it's like that's a fascinating aspect too that you don't think about, like
Yeah.
the end results can be different depending on who's making it. So it's like, even if you have an idea that's been done before, the way you execute it or tell it will be different and will be unique to you. And so you never know what's going to like hit, right? So like you need to still do it. Otherwise it's kind of like a moot point, right? Like, so that's what I'm discovering
Mm.
too. Is like, okay, I need to get over my writer's block, and I need to like let the creative juices flow so I can get there and like, you know, do the crazy stuff I want to do. Because not crazy, but it's like, some ideas are pretty out there sometimes, but it's like, oh, I should probably just make it happen, like
Yeah.
build it and they will come kind of concept. Like I've been
Yeah.
told that, like, yeah, your ideas are good, but you just need to execute them, and then
Mhm.
in a unique way that kind of tells your story, but through the lens of obviously different characters and stories. And I think that's so fascinating to me, that it's like there is an interest out there and there's a hunger, I think, for certain independent types of projects that I think like is very is a very unique in time, I think, to kind of
Mhm.
jump in, even though I may have missed like the first wave of like maybe Asian artists who kind of have been driving a lot of the opportunities these days. But I think there's still a lot of room to kind of be included for everyone who wants to pursue like a artistic career. I think
Mhm.
there's room for all types of voices, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, especially in the creative industry. I think
Hmm.
that too.
Yeah.
And actually Lee recommended The Artist's Way, and that is
Oh
like,
my gosh, my brother did too.
oh,
So
really?
you know what,
Recently to you?
he's been talking about it the last couple of months.
Oh,
So yeah,
okay.
fairly recently.
It's a
Yeah,
sign. You
I don't
need
know
to
when
get
Lee
on it.
mentioned it to you. Have you started?
Not yet, because I've been trying to finish, like, a few other books. I'm the kind of person, I
Oh,
jump
okay.
into a lot of books. So I got one
Me
down,
too.
I'm finishing one more, and then before I jump into that, then, I just wanna
Okay, let me know,
clear that.
because I'm thinking maybe we can do it together. We can be accountability
Yeah.
partners
Oh, I'd
and
love
actually get
that.
something done artistically. It's
Yeah.
me. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Well, for me too, like, there's always something that I need to, like, finish, and there's always creative
Mhm.
projects, so I think that would be really nice too. In it, I think in the book, I think it says to, like, get off of social media or media for, like, a week or something to kinda clear everything out, so I think that would be really interesting too, and almost like a challenge, especially when our projects are
Mm.
specifically on media. So it's almost like, how do you take a break from that if
Mhm.
we have to do a podcast session or we have to edit videos? So yeah, that
Right.
that should be interesting actually. Huh. All right. Well, we'll figure
I'd
it
love
out.
to read that section and see like what the rules are. Like what do they prescribe to do, I think that would be really interesting to go through.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that'll be fun.
Speaking of like process, it'll be really interesting to see if our current artistic processes change going through the artist's way. I think it'll be very
Ooh.
interesting. Yeah.
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 Huh.
Okay, let me know so I can go borrow it from the library.
No, but
I'm
that's great.
trying to do a no books buying thing for this year, but so far I failed because I bought these books and some other ones. But yeah, I'm trying to go digital too, so we'll see.
Mhm.
I do like having a physical book though. There's something about it that's very it's just an experience that's different from like an e-reader, right? Like Kindle or yeah, reading something online. I don't know. It's all they're all good, but I think it's different on the eyes, just from
Oh,
my own
definitely.
experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, because, like, there's one thing with seeing a screen and not necessarily touching it or just holding on to one thing that's, like, flat, there's nothing that ever changes, like, yeah, it definitely affects us, and there is more of an experience when it comes to a book, like, there's just the physical sensation of holding it, of, like, moving it
And the
around, and
pages, yes.
yeah, I agree, like
Yeah.
books. But yeah, definitely going to the library. I always forget like, oh, that's an option. And the library, they also do well, at least the one here in Austin, they do like
Hmm.
video rentals, they do the book
Oh
rentals,
yeah.
audio rentals. So anybody who wants to get into that, they can easily like look up free materials for whatever they want
Hmm.
and then use that instead of
Yeah.
buying stuff.
It's exactly. And then it's like buying books. It's like, well, where am I going to put it all? Eventually. So it's just like
Yeah.
now I'm like, okay. I need to get back into physical reading because I have so many books. I'm not even lying, Denise. I have like 400 books.
Oh my gosh. Wait, what if you donate it to your library? They might
That's what I'm
accept
thinking.
that.
Is like I'll probably read some and then see if I can donate some or sell them secondhand to the
Yeah.
local thrift stores or secondhand bookstores. And sometimes I'll give you credit or like,
Oh.
towards other books, so yeah, I'll have to check that out once I get a collection going so I can haul like, not just one, but like, maybe like five 5 to 10 books at one time and go to the store or go to the library to like, oh, do you guys take these?
Yeah.
Something. I have to figure out before I go though, because I've often what I've done, Denise, in the past, I've shown up to a place. I didn't look it up online before, and I'm just like, "Oh, they don't accept this here," like,
Oh,
or
really?
they don't, do certain things. So I'm just like, "Oh crap! Well, I'm here already, so maybe let me buy another book."
Oh my gosh.
It's a problem. It's a problem. It's a real problem.
I feel the same way. I'll go in and I'm like, "Oh, I'm just gonna gravitate towards this section." Then I spend hours just reading things, and then I'm like, "Oh, but I wanna read about this, and I wanna read about that, and eventually I'm gonna get to that, and obviously I'm gonna read this at some point." So, I feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just kind of like managing it and figuring out how to how to manage your media. I think that's another session we could have of
Ooh.
like, not just like physical, but like there's digital media now too. Speaking of like, our
Mhm.
projects are all digital based. And it's just like not just that, but it's like the content we consume now is mostly digital, right? Like
Yeah.
when we have time, obviously. And so like that's another like how do you manage your library, right? That's another deep dive we could do. I mean, there's so many
Yeah.
topics we could talk about.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And that actually like helps with decluttering your mind because whatever it is that you're constantly consuming, that's what you're going to be thinking. And I know in
Mm.
2020 when I was, everybody was messed up in 2020. And at some point
Oh yeah, I
like
mean,
some point I cleaned out a lot of stuff. I went through my Spotify and I like unfollowed a bunch of different artists, deleted music that I was like, I don't align to this anymore. Why am I listening to like,
hmm
like I grew up listening to rap and hip hop and there was like a lot of violent stuff that was said or like just
hmm
negative shit about women and this and that. And I'm like, but I
right,
don't
right.
support that. Like I'm looking like I understand the lyrics. I hear the lyrics and sometimes I'll be attracted
I
to
think when we're
beats,
younger, we don't
but
really, yeah, yeah,
then it's like, you
and we
don't
don't really
need
like,
that.
yeah, we don't really connect with what the lyrics are saying until later, and we're just like, oh, I didn't know that was actually said. And then
Yeah.
you realize, well, yeah, maybe like you said, you either like you don't support it anymore or it doesn't speak to you, in the same way. I mean, it might be a sick beat, but it might not be the story that you're wanting to tell or support, like you said. So it could
Mhm.
be damaging if you want to like continue supporting certain artists, to in certain ways. I think that's the best way to say it
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
without going down a rabbit hole of like, who and what.
I know, but there's that psychology because it's eventually, like, a lot of that information, especially when you're listening to it over and over, it is like subliminal messaging that's constantly in your head, and if that's all you're ever listening to, if you're, constantly listening to negative things and negative messaging, like, your brain is gonna pick up on that, and that's eventually gonna spread, so that's why when you're
hmm
like sad, yeah, sometimes it's okay to like dive into the sad music, but like you
hmm
gotta balance that. Otherwise, like, yeah, you're gonna stay sad. You're gonna stay depressed. You're gonna
Yeah,
stay angry if that's
right.
all the music you ever listen to. It's just
Yeah.
I learned that the hard way, but I was like, oh, this is a
Oh,
great
me too.
science experiment.
Me too. No, Denise, like that's why now I have to listen to the K-pop.
Oh, K-pop.
'Cause it's all upbeat usually. I mean, they have lots of sad love songs too, like ballads.
There's
But
always
I'm like, "Okay,
sad
I'm
love
skipping that
songs.
shit." I know, I'm like, "I'm skipping that shit. I'm not interested in that. I need to, like,
Yeah.
stay upbeat, otherwise I'm gonna be too depressed."
Right.
That's why I'm like, I need to learn how to DJ so I can get to, like, EDM and, like,
Ooh,
house music and other shit like that. I think that'd be really fun.
yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah.
As we're kinda, like, wrapping things up here, I wanted to ask, like, was there anything that you would wanna share with our listeners? Any last minute tips or comments or words of wisdom?
Yeah, of course. Um, I mean, there's so many, right? There's so many lessons, that you can learn and grow from. But I think like one piece of advice like I usually gravitate towards is like there's always like people out there, like we were saying, who are going to gravitate towards you as long as you stay true to yourself and you execute based out of, it's all from your heart, right? Like when you're creating. And so it's like it's about choosing love, I think.
Mhm.
And so I think that's a really good message to kind of end on is that like no matter what you're doing, it's you have to focus on what you're putting out there, right? And so I've been relearning this lesson too in the last year or so. And so it's like, yeah, just if you do get down or negative, it's okay. But it's like, trying not to dwell on it is important.
Mhm.
And just listen to some good music and dance around your apartment. Sometimes that's what you need.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I really appreciate that. It's true. It's like we forget that creation is sometimes like out of love and just doing art
Hmm.
just for the sake of it. Just get it out.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love talking to you today, and thanks for inviting
Oh,
me.
yeah, no, of course. And I'd love to like continue talking, but like I got like another thing happening after this. But you know what I just realized too? I think today is like the Chinese New Year. It's like the year of the dragon.
Oh, it is. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, that's exciting.
Happy Chinese New Year. Happy Lunar New
Happy
Year.
Lunar New Year.
Yeah, and like what's interesting is that I was born in the year of the dragon,
Yeah.
so it's like it's supposed to be lucky for you if it's your year,
Mm.
but it's just like, well, nothing's happened yet. Well, maybe I'm like something happened this year. We'll see.
Yet. Remember, we still got a year because I was also Year of the
Hmm.
Dragon, so
Yep.
we're about to fuck shit up this year. I don't know how,
Awesome.
but it's gonna
Yes, I
happen.
love that. Well, first we gotta finish our music documentary, and then
Yeah.
I'm gonna loop you guys into my other projects because the other projects are gonna be lengthier, and I'm gonna be submitting to contests so I can try to win some funds
Ooh.
to like do some cool stuff.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
would be dope.
like I'm not working on the historical fiction one with the transcontinental railroad one. I have one that I tried to shoot with Jessica while I was still in Austin called The Barn, and I'm gonna be fleshing that out to submit at the end of the month for Jordan Peele's company's
Cool.
it's like a new it's their first annual like writing competition, but it's going to involve some video too because you have to essentially pitch it to them,
Mm.
and they're only picking six winners. And like, so hopefully I win, and then we have $50,000 to make it. But if not, then I'll find some other avenues. But to kind of do that, but that's happening this month. Is one of the shorter projects
Mhm.
I'm working on. They're only accepting up to 15 pages,
Oh,
and I have like part of the screenplay written already. So I just need to go back in and finish it up, but that's in the works too. And then I've got some other stuff that I'm wanting to work on, but haven't gone there yet.
yeah.
So yeah, but I'm hoping that that's kind of the lucky area that I'll be
Yes.
experiencing later.
Sending the good dragon vibes over there to you because that sounds
Thanks,
awesome,
dude.
and yeah, that's really exciting, and I didn't know they had stuff like
Yeah,
that,
I'm gonna work on
so
it
that's
tomorrow.
really dope.
There are, oh my gosh, if you want to talk about writing contests or competitions or getting your work out there, like what the pipeline looks like, talk to me about that
Oh,
offline,
yeah.
and we'll keep the conversation going.
Hell
Yeah,
yeah. That sounds great.
about all these topics if you want to.
No, literally everything. I mean, we have to check in with
For
Julia's,
yeah, I know.
creative process anyway, so yeah, well, we have a lot to, like,
Hmm.
continue to keep tabs on, and then obviously, like, our documentary, so yeah, we're gonna be talking for sure.
Definitely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Text me anytime, dude.
Yeah, of
I'm
course, and
available.
likewise.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
well, thank you so much, Rogue. I really appreciate your time today. This has been an awesome conversation. And I know like we'll end up, who knows, maybe recording another session at another time as we like further
Oh, that would be
expand on different
awesome.
things. Yeah, it'll be like a cool follow up.
Yeah, yeah,
So
definitely.
Yeah, so I'm
Okay,
going to share all the
for
info
sure.
in the bio. So for any listeners who are interested in checking out some of the references, Rogue did leave some recommendations on quite a number of things like the videos and books and things like that. So we'll have it in there, and then yeah, we'll follow up. But until the next time,
Sounds
thank
great.
you again, Rogue, and thank you so much to all of our listeners and viewers. I really appreciate your time, and until the next one.
Yes, sounds great. Thank you so much again, Denise. And yeah, hope to see you soon. And we'll definitely continue the conversation. Yeah,
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, we're definitely it's gonna happen. So we're gonna continue it.
right, right. Yeah, okay.
All
Awesome.
right. Thank you.